Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. I'm Corey. That's Richard. That's Tessa, and that's Vic. I'm pointing different directions because I have no idea where they're situated on your screen.
One time he'll get it right once.
I don't know how you set it up. It's your fault. You don't tell me these things.
Well, you're in the lower left-hand corner if you're looking at the screen. Richard's next to you. Tessa's above you, and I'm diagonal.
Okay. Well, there's Richard.
There's Tessa.
Up there.
And there's me.
And there's Vic. There we go. There we figured it out.
Got it.
He's gonna have to remember that.
He's gonna have a little sticky note on his screen with like arrows, and with the name is like Tessa, Vic, Richard. which way to point.
We are going to break down the latest episode of The Mandalorian. So, but before we do want to let you know, since you are watching this on YouTube, we do have these available in audio format. They are on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Play. They're probably in some other random ass podcast places. Can I say ass this early in the video? I don't know.
I think we're past 5 seconds.
Yeah,
I think so. 8 seconds, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're past that. It's not like we're getting monetized anyway, so let's be honest. But yes, you can go check those out along with all of our other episodes of shows we talked about. Vic and I are currently doing the Bad Batch as well, so you can find those available in those places. So please go out there and check those out and hit the subscribe button and check them out. We'd appreciate it. And if you are listening, this is available on YouTube as well. The link is in the description, so just head on over there, hit the subscribe button. You can see us all in our visual glory, if you will. And I knew you were going to respond that way. I knew it because you had to take it that direction. I wasn't meaning it that way. But you can do that. Also in the link is going to be a link to the other show that Tessa is doing. And if you want to give them a little plug, if you will.
Sure. So I'm joining up with a buddy of mine from high school, and we're just going to have a breakdown of that's
copyrighted by us. You can't take that
of all our favorite movies. We're going to take recommendations from people on what kind of movies they want us to break down. We're just going to talk about what we like about it, what we don't like about it. You can find it on Matt's Geek Corner on YouTube, and I'm also going to be moderating his live gameplays on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So come find us over there. Come join the conversation and have a good time breaking it down.
Nope, can't use that. We're gonna put a cease and desist on that.
If you are proceeds,
yes,
you and the 40 other YouTube channels that call themselves The Breakdown.
The funny part about that though was there was only one before us, and now there's like 90 of them, including
it's on
Maya
them.
Bialik, like that. From what was she from? The Big Bang Theory and Blossom.
Oh, she's using that now.
Yeah, her podcast she started like 7 months ago. It's called The Breakdown also.
Oh no, we're definitely suing her. She's got Jeopardy money, so we can, we're
and what lawyer money do you have, Corey?
Don't worry about that. If you are watching this on YouTube, the link for that other show is also down below as well too. So without further ado, let's break this down.
All right, guys, we are on chapter 19 of The Mandalorian, titled The Convert. This episode, it was not a whole lot of Mando, but it was a whole lot of somebody else we know from the prior season. We are going to break down the Dr. Pershing storyline of this episode first. And the reason why is because I think there is a lot of conversation to be had about the Mando portion of the episode. So we're gonna get to the meat and potatoes, then we'll go back to the fun stuff. Desserts at the end.
So if you just fast forward to 45-minute marker, that's probably what you really want.
Desserts at the end of the meal, people. End of the meal. So on Coruscant, we go back to Coruscant again, and we see that Dr. Pershing has gotten himself into a pretty good position in the New Republic. He is discussing his role in the cloning / genetic alteration that the Empire was doing while he was working for them. And then we very quickly find out that he is in like an amnesty program, which allows him to, which he was, I guess, found innocent?
Guilty.
Well,
Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
like
Not innocent, but more of he was forced into it. He didn't have a choice.
he got a pardon. Let's put it that way. He got a pardon from the New Republic that says, okay, we understand that you were a bad guy, but we're going to turn you into a good guy. You're going to live in these really bad tenement apartments over here and work for us for low wages. And welcome to the 23rd century.
It really makes them seem like it makes them seem like they're now working for bad guys.
You trade up when it comes to things like this. You trade up. Well, let's put this straight too. The Republic has never actually been the good guys. Like, they are a republic. They are there to quote unquote take care of the people, but they're also bureaucrats. So you're never going to find a quote unquote good
and
bureaucrat.
especially when it comes to the end of the episode when we get to that.
So yeah.
It just doesn't seem good, but you know.
Well, you can also see how much they think of them as second-class citizens, because if you look at them when they're sitting in the courtyard, like all of the little planter areas that they have, everything's dead. Like the leaves are falling off. There's nobody like doing groundskeeping around there
Compared to the
so it was definitely like projects.
Mm-hmm.
For lack of a better term, and everybody that was part of the program was all wearing gray.
Welcome
so they were all
ghetto.
very much of the you're all one and the same, and we don't want you to blend in with, we want you to blend into the background, not mingle with citizens. Even though you're a citizen, don't mingle with the citizens.
They weren't making them wear gray, because gray was an Empire color. Their uniforms were like this blue, like a gray blue.
Yeah, but
it was slate. It was a slate color.
There you go.
So he gets back from and again, you notice how like prim and proper he was being when he was in front of all of the rich socialites who could possibly help him, and how quickly they were all like ready to glom on to what he was saying at the concert hall.
Because he was the new shiny thing.
Right, exactly. They're like, oh, we all want to have something to do with you. And then as soon as he gets back to, the ghetto, he's like, I'm just going to go to my room now because nobody loves me. But he was befriended by several of his other fellow
refugees.
Bad guys.
Refugees.
Amnesty program members.
Yeah, what do you call what do you call someone who's got, I don't know. Former Empire associates. We'll go with that. And he gets introduced to them. They all have numbers still, just like if you're a stormtrooper, they're like LG39, LM45, LG51. There's LG52. But they get introduced, and he actually realizes that he knows one of them, and it's Elia Kane. And he's like, how in the hell are you here? How were you pardoned? And I was thinking the same thing when I first saw her. I was like...
Well, wait, before you get to that part, did you recall whenever he was giving his speech in the center, when he reached up and touched his ear?
Yep.
You remember where he got that injury?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He got zapped by, what's her face?
Cara Dune,
who was trying to save him, and nipped him in the ear. But I think that's also kind of like a nervous tick too. Like that's his tell
that he's
that's
lying.
Very much his tell that like whenever he's conflicted and he's about to lie about something, he goes for his ear. And again, like he doesn't understand. Like he's like, okay, so the people that weren't bad get to go in this program. The people that were bad, are obviously tried and convicted for their crimes, like they wanted to do to Moff Gideon before he escaped, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, about
that. But how does he escapes and gets away, but she doesn't? And he's like, how are you in this program? Like, I know that's the thought he had, which was you were like Moff Gideon's right hand. Yet you're in this program. I
personally saw you do terrible things.
Exactly. And look the other way while they were being done. So I don't understand how you're here. But she eventually convinces him that, we all get a second chance. And he's like, he's all about the second chance. He wants to help. He wants to be part of the New Republic, and he wants to show them that the knowledge that he has is useful and can help them, and that's what he wants to do. But
Yeah, this whole episode definitely shows how willingly naive Persian is. He wants everything to work out. He wants everything to be this better place, like it's being told to people that it is. But he's easily falling into traps because he's letting his naivety just shine through.
But he was like that when we first met him in season 1. Like he didn't want to hurt Grogu. Like he wanted to protect him and take care of him. Like he wasn't trying to like harm him. He just needed to do his job, but he was trying to do it in a way that wasn't going to harm Grogu. So you see that he actually he's got some empathy. He's probably a good guy. It was the only way he could do what he wanted to do, and have the freedom to do what he wanted to do, was working for the Empire. But they feel like they can convert him into something more by putting him behind a desk processing outdated equipment for disposal.
You know, I watched these 2 scenes that they had of him sitting at the desk. I'm like, what exactly is he doing?
Inventory.
Yeah, he's inventorying all all the Imperial data that they collected from all of the hardware.
Basically, somebody's going through the shipyard and logging all the equipment, all the ships and everything that they had, whether it be Empire or Old Republic, you know, before the New Republic was born. And they're decommissioning
they specifically
it all.
Said Rebellion. They were decommissioning the Rebellion and the Empire Imperial stuff.
So they're going through and they're cataloging all of this, and anything that can be used will be flagged for redistribution. Anything that cannot or is Empire tech is going to get flagged for destruction.
Right.
So it's purely.
That guy specifically said if it's Imperial, it gets destroyed because he said we can use this. This can be helpful. We can recycle this and help people with this. But the other guy came behind him and said it's Imperial. It's getting destroyed.
As we know, there are some things that the Imperials have and used that did not get destroyed. So, but he, despite his, the other thing, that whole work area very much looked like the same office space that they used in Andor.
Yes.
The ISB, I thought the same thing.
Side, just from the other side of the room, basically, is what it looked like to
me. And that may just be the Star Wars version of a cube farm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. But like the technology that was being used on it was pretty much the same. The viewfinder and everything, like it was all very, very reminiscent and similar to what we saw.
Got a little card reader that's reminiscent of like a punch clock for somebody's time card.
Exactly.
And they're just dropping that little slot, that card in there, reading the data that's off of it, and move along.
Yep.
But
I was just waiting for somebody.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So did anybody else notice those cards and get a flashback of Rogue One when they were carrying the Death Star battle plans?
Yeah.
Through the scene when Darth Vader just comes in and just beast modes, and they're carrying that card and they give that card to Princess Leia and they hold that card up. It looks exactly like the same cards that he's going through and checking all the data. Same.
They're very, very good about drawing all the different things together to again make everyone go, this looks a whole lot like this, that looks a whole lot like that, and why this is awesome. But what were you going to say, Corey?
Well, I mean, once you've established a shape of like paper and currency and things like that, you just have to keep it consistent, across everything you do, and so it's not that big of a deal.
I was just waiting for somebody to come up and tell me he had to work on Saturday.
he
put a cover sheet on his TPS report.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what that guy kept doing.
Yeah.
He definitely was. So his existence is very mundane. It's not what he's used to. It's not what he wants to do. He wants to get back into the lab. He wants to get back into doing his research and finding a way to make his research help, or finding a way to make the research help the New Republic. But in the course of that whole thing, he just keeps getting shut down. Until Kane decides, I'm going to befriend this guy. And she starts it off in their conversation earlier in the episode. He starts talking about how he likes the yellow dinner biscuits or food biscuits or whatever. And she's like, yeah. she's like, those are good, but I kind of like the red ones. And I was like, all right. I see what's going on here. But and as soon as he goes upstairs, all of a sudden he gets a ding dong ditch on his door, and on the floor is a box full of Imperial yellow biscuits.
They're travel biscuits.
Travel biscuits.
Am I the only one that knew who gave that to her, or gave that to him, but more importantly, knew that she was setting him up from the very beginning?
Oh yeah. I even wrote down in my notes the first time we saw her, instant bad vibes.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody looked at it and immediately knew this is not going to end well.
The first thing I said, I was like, this bitch is ISB, no doubt. Like, she is a spy. There was no doubt. Like, as soon as they talk about the fact that Moff Gideon escaped. Okay. Yeah. But she didn't, because she would have been taken into custody the same time he was. She was on that ship. So they all would have gotten taken into custody. Obviously, he was a little more high profile, but he got away. And she's
that's the thing, though, is that they mentioned in the first episode that Gideon was taken to a war tribunal to be tried for war crimes, whereas the crew of his ship would have just been arrested and sent off to a penitentiary.
But he was taken to Coruscant. And she's on Coruscant.
Yeah, but they would have done that in two very different ships. Mm-hmm. Moff Gideon should have been under heavy guard, transported in a much faster ship, whereas the crew of his ship would have literally just been shoved into pens like cattle.
I feel like they would have been locked up. I feel like they would have locked them all up on the ship and taken the ship back to Coruscant with everybody in it. But either way, he got away, she stayed. That was sus right there. So he gets his travel biscuits, and that's kind of his comfort place, the entire, like, his safe space. Every time he gets nervous, every time he doesn't like what's going on, he grabs a little pack of his travel biscuits, so that we know what he's feeling, even if he's not saying it out loud. He has a couple run-ins with his, I guess it's his robotic parole officer or shrink, or I don't know, both.
He definitely got PO vibes.
Yeah, just keeps asking him the same questions.
Well, how are you feeling? It's definitely about how are you assimilating? With the questions of, do you harbor any ill will towards the New Republic? Yeah. Do you feel that you want to harm any member of the New Republic? He's being assimilated.
Yeah.
And I think if he would have answered wrong, it just would have zapped him, like the dude at the beginning of Ghostbusters.
No, I definitely think that, the cell may have, because it was a cell for all intents and purposes, probably gone into lockdown, and they would have come to get him.
Yeah, some troopers would have come.
He would have been, if he had answered incorrectly, they would have taken him back, and he either would have gone straight back to the lower pens, or he would have had to go through the rehab program over again.
Right. There's a point in there again, like on the second visit, his tell shows up. The big thing about, like, that whole thing is, like, every person there has to go sit through that. Like, we don't know how many times a week, like maybe once a week they have to sit through that whole thing. But I'm sure the more that happens, the more resentful the person gets. So it's kind of like they're turning them on themselves the entire time, because we already know that they just don't like that process.
I got a severe case of where now I understand and agree with Corey on this one. Like, you just keep asking me that same question over and over and over again. Yeah, you're gonna make me develop some resentment towards this.
What was Corey? Blade Runner. What was the machine that they would ask them questions and they had to?
You're asking the wrong person. I've never watched Blade Runner.
You've never watched Blade Runner, Mr. Cinephile?
Yeah, no, I've got it over there, but I just never watched it.
That's what this just broke into my head, was that scene where he walks up and he's like, "Are you a synthoid?"
You're 100% correct. I can't remember what the name of the machine is, but I know what you're talking about.
That's the one. But he goes through his day to day. Kane comes to him at night, and she's like, "Hey, let's go hang out." And they go into the city center. Completely different environment than where they're living. Lights, colorful people, robots on stilts, vendors,
It's a carnival.
the top of Mount Coruscant. It's just a lively place. It's like it's the place everybody goes, and he's having an ice cream. They're having an ice cream together in a nice conversation. And his ice cream
was
is
so
blue.
strange.
Her ice cream was red. There it is again. Yeah. So dude,
it was so strange though.
What?
Like those popsicle things that they were supposed to be eating, because it just looked like a piece of plastic that they just kept sucking on.
Yeah, she's like, it's melting on you, and I was like, man, they could have at least had it like wet.
Yeah, it's like
it all.
Doesn't she call it like a fizzy pop or an Illuma pop or something?
Yeah, I think it was like a fizzy pop or something like that. Yeah, but I mean, maybe it was just a lollipop. We don't know. But she's like, hey, you should go touch the mountain. He's like, can I? She's like, yeah, why not? And he goes to touch it, and the little security droid jumps out at him like, I was waiting for you to try that. Which scares him and drops his ice pop.
I kind of saw that coming too.
Yeah, it's all part of her setting him up and convincing him to break rules. And it's like, if you break the small one, and you break, that's just the first step, and then you can break a little bit bigger one and a little bit bigger one, and eventually you can step over that line just enough that we can snatch you up.
It's like, dude, she's grooming him. Like, literally, we're watching her groom him into doing something stupid because he was against it.
Well, that phrase that she said, she goes, come on, it's not the Empire.
Right.
They're not watching you that close. Yeah. We can do what we want now. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She was devious and openly devious. Like, we could easily, I'm sure everybody here just saw what was going on. Everybody at home watching knew what she was up to. But it was just the fact that Pershing is so innocent and, like you said, gullible and empathetic to everything that he can't imagine that she would do this to him. And the entire time I'm like, dude, wake up. How do you not see what she's doing to you? Like, how do you not see this? So she finally convinces him that what he wants to do is the right thing. You should, do your experiments. You should use that for the betterment of the New Republic. Everybody wants to help the New Republic. That's why we're here. That's why we're all part of the program. And he's like, yeah, but in order to do that, I need my equipment. After they tell him he can't have his equipment and they turn him down, he's like, I can't do it without my equipment. And she's like, I just happen to know where we can get some. And she leads him astray. They jump the turnstile, which I'm glad to see still happens that far into the future or the past, whichever one it may be. And
galaxy, long time ago.
Right.
Galaxy it's a long time
galaxy
ago.
Far away.
The fact that they jump the turnstile, they get onto the train, and Tong's Day, am I right?
Oh. As soon as I heard it, I was like, Vic got it.
Yep. I was all over it. I was so excited when I saw that. I was like, yes. Corey, we just gave you the education on it, and it was the side question of last week, and it just kind of came up this week. So it was perfectly timed. Corey's like, oh,
I forgot about it.
Of course you did. Of course.
I was just about to say, hey, Corey, remind us what tongs are.
They're the things I have over there in the kitchen that I can make stuff up with.
There's no helping him. There really isn't.
I'm not wrong.
So the apparently there are still ticket takers, which I thought was a subway. If you had to swipe in to get on it, why do you need to have tickets while you're
for this
on
very
it?
reason?
So I know I haven't ridden a lot of mass transit here in the U.S., but I do know, like over in Germany when I lived there for a few years, that even though you bought your ticket at the station, they would randomly have people walking the trains and the buses checking, because people will just randomly get on.
Sure.
And so they'll go by and check. And if you can't provide a ticket that is valid for the zone you're in, you get a fine.
Well,
plus, Vic, they wouldn't have been able to have the scene where they're trying to escape from it and jump off the train.
All right, ass. We get that. Jesus.
I
think
that's actually the only excuse that Corey ever gives when we're like, well, why did they do this? Well, because they wouldn't have been able to have that scene if they didn't.
Right. Because of Star Wars. So she convinces them like we need to move forward. And I think that part of that also is to like get his adrenaline going, like because there's obviously a button that would have opened that thing and they could have just stepped over, but she kept making him jump over that thing rather than just like using the little connector that comes over top of the
Well,
coupler.
yes and no, because if she had extended the gangplanks, it wouldn't have slowed the droid down. So the droid had to stop and physically force that plank to cross.
And it was the droid pushing his buttons on his chest that caused.
Yeah, he may not have had access.
I could have swore there was a button on the door.
No, it was the droid that went like do on his chest.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I could have swore I saw it grab the edge of the door and I saw that thing come out, but he may have been doing that when he grabbed the door. Either way, so they jump over. She gets this adrenaline pumping. They get to the end of it and they're like, "What are we gonna do now? These things are coming. We're at the front of the train. What do we do?" And they reach their destination and they jump off the train. I'm like, look, I've been hit by enough trains and playing games that. There is no way in hibbity hell that I would have jumped off that train like that, not knowing where I was jumping to or what I was going to jump on. That train could have clipped him as he jumped off. It could have been horrible.
That train was moving awful fast too.
There's nothing below.
There could have been a wall just show up all of a sudden.
There's never any railings anywhere in Star Wars, so he would have just fell. He would have just fallen to his doom. I can feel that pain already. So they jump off the train and they manage to get to the salvage yard, which is the end result of what he's doing as a job. They get onto a was it a destroyer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a Star Destroyer.
So they get on the Star Destroyer. She expertly hacks the doorway, which I'm like, if these things are all decommissioned and they're not supposed to be being used, why are they powered on at the end of the night? Like, just turn the power off. It just seems like
that was the other really crappy thing she said. He was like, "Are you sure no one's watching?" She's like, "That's a good thing about a scrap heap. Nobody has to guard it."
Right.
And we're like, "Really?" Really?
Pretty sure. Like especially since we've seen other things where they talk about people scavenging, parts off of things. It's definitely something
and of course, he asks her, and she's like, well, where do you think I got the biscuits from? So it's like I've already been here before. I know exactly where to go.
It's like, how old were those biscuits?
It's barely the convenience. But yeah.
And then my other red flag that went up is the new Empire is clearly making a big point of keeping Imperial technology and stuff out of people's hands and making sure it doesn't get out into society or doesn't like any of the warlords or anybody like the Hutts or anything like that doesn't get their hands on these things. So common sense tells you, that area is going to be heavily guarded.
Right.
The fact that we didn't see them just proves that she's a double-edged spy. She told the new Empire, "Hey, I'm going to bring him here. I'm going to prove that he's, he needs to go back and get rehabilitated. Just make the guards go away for a little bit so you guys can catch us when we come back." But anything else, that would have been heavily guarded.
Right.
24/7.
There's a gene splicing lab.
Hold on. First off, it's the New Republic, not the New Empire.
Sorry.
And second off, what are the chances what are the chances, and Vic is going to hate this, that Gorian Shard might show up again?
Oh, no. I told you keep that name out your mouth. Nobody needs that.
I mean, a shipyard full of derelicts, a pirate.
But it's on Coruscant. I don't think he's going to take that chance.
I don't think he's coming from the Outer Rim.
To one of the Outer Rim salvage yards than going to Coruscant to try to do it.
But it was worth it to see your face.
That character never needs to be seen again. And if they try to make some spin-off on that, nope. Moving on. She has a couple flashlights ready for him. They go through the Star Destroyer and they go through the quiet corridors. There wasn't even a mouse bot roaming the floors, which is disappointing because you always see a mouse bot whenever you're on one of those ships. And a mouse droid, sorry.
Creepy insects.
Yeah, something.
It was some sort of electro insect.
So they get to the lab, and which apparently, like, what's one of the first things you would do? Like, secure all of the chemicals on the ship, like the weapons, the chemicals, like all that stuff should have been off of that ship first, like right away. But that lab is fully stocked, and he starts putting together his mobile lab that he wants to use to continue his experiments. Which I don't know where he's going to do that, considering he lives in the project, and they probably monitor and inspect those houses on a regular basis. But he puts everything together to make a working mobile lab.
Well, and we haven't actually touched on what it was that he was trying to do. He gave the big speech at the beginning about the cloning and everything, and he talks about clone splicing.
Right.
And he actually tells our friend, that the reason he got into it was because of, what was it, his mother or his aunt or something like that had a heart problem.
His mother died because of her heart.
And so what he was trying to do was he was trying to clone specific organs, not necessarily full bodies, but specific organs, and use gene splicing technology to get rid of defects.
Right.
So that's what he's trying to do, is he's trying to get the technology and the materials so that he could get back to work on trying to, because he thinks that if he can make up a heart or a kidney or a liver or something, that maybe he can help somebody who's sick. And so that's what he's trying to do right now. He wasn't necessarily in a full cloning facility like the Geonosians, and that's not what he wanted to do, but that's what Gideon had him doing.
But see that, and that's the other thing to it, though, is what he was part of the program, quote unquote. I think he knows what they were trying to do for Palpatine. I feel like he may not know it's for Palpatine, but he knows
that's what Gideon had him trying to do.
He knows what the projects are producing, what the results of those projects are, and you could tell he was not real happy with the way that those things turned out, and that's not what he wanted to do. But because he does have that skill, the Empire, brought him in because they're good at finding talent. But he knew that he didn't like what he was doing.
You said the cloning Geonosians?
Yeah, Geonosians were also
Kaminoans, sorry.
Okay.
Right, Kaminoans. The Kaminoans were the never mind.
No, she's gonna get you back for what you did.
I know.
That was what we call the tit for tat. I could tell by the look on her face. As soon as I looked at her face, I was like, "Oh, she's getting ready to go in on him."
but 2-1.
Oof. We're keeping score now. Okay. But yeah, so he gets the lab together, and then as they're leaving, they realize that they're not alone, and they make a run for it. And I'm like, dude, when you're trying to run away, turn the flashlights off.
It's exactly what I was going to say.
So they don't see where you're going or coming from.
And did you notice how light that freaking box was?
Yeah.
As big as that box was, he was just
no problem
like,
at all.
seriously?
Barely inconvenience.
Meanwhile, the light is just going all over the place. I'm like, oh, they can just go. They're right there.
Yeah, we just wait for them to come out that door right over there. Because see the light? Yeah, it's heading right for that door.
Yeah, we see where it's going.
But they get outside and they get stopped by the Imperial. Sorry, not the Imperial. By the New Republic police, and one of the hover ships come in and they stop him, and he gets arrested, and he finds out that he's the only one getting arrested because she, who conveniently grabs the mobile kit,
lab equipment,
mobile lab kit, conveniently grabs that and walks away with it, and he's like, "What's going on? I don't understand. What did we do wrong? Like, I don't know why would you do this to me?" It was like, because she's been screwing you the entire time, dude. You were an easy mark.
Honestly, I don't think it clicked with him until he watched her walk away. She turned around and walked away, and then you notice he tried to walk with her.
Right.
And that's when the police just stepped in and said nope. And then I think that's when it finally sunk in, where he was like, hold on.
Oh, she did this to me.
Hold on.
Yep, she did this to me. So final scene for this portion of the episode is he is strapped to a table in a mind flare. which conveniently enough is something that the Old Republic outlawed, the New Republic claimed to not use, however, is there. They just painted it white. And I'm pretty sure that's a piece of technology that they did take off of one of the
The best
Imperial
thing we
vessels.
took from all of this was the fact that it was a Mon Calamari doctor, and everybody literally said, "It's a trap."
Dude, I was actually like, I was laughing when it happened, but then like after I laughed about it, I was like, that's just dirty. Because not only did they say it, but the Mon Calamari looked at the camera for a second. I'm like, no, you like, it was fine for like 10 seconds until you looked at the camera. And when you looked at the camera, all you were doing was going, see what we did there? And I hate them for it.
Severely low hanging fruit on that one.
Very
Oh,
Severely
God, it was
low-hanging
like,
and like, because I didn't think, I was like, dude, you just walked into a trap. And as soon as I saw Mon Calamari, I was like, yep. And then he actually verbalized. I was like, no, everyone already knew. Like, the joke didn't need to be said. Everyone in this room was thinking the same thing. Like, dude, you just walked into a trap and he's a Mon Calamari. Like, we were all thinking it, but he just had to put it out there.
Yeah, it's like, we're going to go ahead and break the fourth wall here. It's a trap. Get it? Get what we did here?
The doctor is like, oh, don't worry. We only use it on a low setting. It's quite refreshing. I've been through the treatment myself, and it came out of it fresh like a daisy. I'm like, dude, you're going to fry your brain, dude.
Everything about that Mon Calamari thing bothered me.
Yeah.
The way he talked, what he said, the it's a trap, low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Every single part. Like, even the way he was holding his hands, you could tell that the cuffs that they stuffed up underneath his sleeves were about to fall off. If he put his arms down straight, they were going to fall off because he was
kept
holding his
arms like this,
awkward.
like the whole time.
I'm like, everything about that scene with the Mon Calamari bothered me. I didn't like
yeah,
it.
and this whole thing that he's having to do with the whole light thing. That was another thing that made me think, it's like they're making the New Empire look like bad guys here. And because...
New Empire?
Yeah.
New
Republic.
Well, that's what I mean, whatever. What the fuck? So many BD names.
So, the doctor...
The other thing that really annoyed me is, oh yeah, we only use a low setting, and it's great. It's been tested, it's 100% safe.
He's like, no, this is a mind flayer.
Walk away and leave this incredibly dangerous machine unattended with someone who is not certified or trained to be near this machine.
She is a confidential
Conniving.
informant. She is on their side. She has used her ways on them the same way she did on him, and they are convinced that she's on their side, that she's an important part of their team. And that whole when the Twi'lek was like, "Oh yeah, well you're what did he say? You're a credit
model
to your
representative.
You're a credit to your people, blah blah blah, whatever he said." Like, you could tell that she's been doing this to all of them. Like, she's got them all duped.
So it's what we call
on their side.
It's what we call today gaslighting.
Right. To the point where they think she's one of them and she definitely is not. So he's like, oh yeah, well, I understand he's your friend, so yeah, you can oversee that. What?
But here's the question though. If she's really assume that she's still with Moff Gideon.
Yeah.
Why is she
There's no assumption. She's
still
with.
Why is she treating him this way?
Because she needs to get him back on that side. They need him to help continue.
I don't even think that's it. Go ahead.
Melt
his
brain, shut him down.
Yep. So that's one theory. My theory to it is that she got what she needed. They didn't have his process. When he went there and got that mobile lab, he got all the things that he needed for them to be able to reverse engineer his process. And with his notes and his things and what he's done, they don't need him anymore, and they don't want anyone to know what he knows about what he's been doing, because if the New Republic find out what he's been doing for Gideon to help who we know is in the background, then they will know what they're up to. So they are getting rid of that problem altogether. They've learned the process, they've got his process, they've got his equipment. Now they just need to fry his brain so that he gets reset back to zero if that thing doesn't
a lobotomy.
Yeah,
Well,
if that thing doesn't kill him, and then they're done with him, she just walks off.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because that would help explain why they messed up the cloning problem so bad afterwards. Because he was that. I mean, they might have thought that they had everything that they needed, but there was probably one thing that was just in his head and his head alone that might have made that cloning process perfect and actually come out with that perfect vessel for Palpatine to jump into.
That's
but
why you
since
end up with
brain
Snoke.
fried him, they couldn't do it right.
I'll mention that.
Yeah, they definitely. It's definitely a matter of we need to eliminate. She's there. I think that she's there as a double agent. Wasn't necessarily there specifically for him because she was obviously there before, but she's definitely there to watch what they're doing, see how far they're getting, see what they're finding out so that she can report back. So she's definitely a spy. She's definitely a double agent. When she made that statement of, oh, well, what'd you want to be when you grew up? What'd you always want to be in your childhood? And she's like, I didn't have a choice. She didn't have a choice because she was inducted into the ISB as a kid and turned into a super spy, because that's what the ISB did. So like, if that statement alone was
the
just
Empire
like
did as a whole,
but the ISB was really bad about it. Like they tortured those kids, and that's why she knows what that mind flare is, because they put them in it as a training tool. Like you should know what you're using, type of situation. So when soon as she did that, and when she turned it up and it went red, I was like, there's that red again, 3 times the charm. She is definitely not who she says she is who she says she is, but she's definitely not on the New Republic side for sure.
Yeah. And that is also a lead into, and I can't believe I'm about to actually reference the sequel trilogy. But when Finn goes rogue in the very beginning, and they say that, oh, he needs to be put in for what do they call it? Not refurbishing, but
reconditioning.
Yeah.
Reconditioning, yes. This is what they were talking about. They were going to take him back into this machine.
That's why he flipped out and he's like, no, you're not putting me in that thing. And he was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Because those mind flayers are no joke. They just, they scramble your eggs 100%.
Because if you notice, when it's still on that low level, he's just sitting there like,
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, oh, well, maybe this isn't so bad. And then once she cranks it up, like, if you're not bad, like, quote unquote bad guys, why'd you even have that setting still there? Like, if you're not using that technology to the detriment of a being, then why would you even have that setting available anymore? So yeah,
well,
that's true. It's
the New Republic are not good guys.
Why would you keep the machine in general?
Right.
I mean,
well, especially after you're like, oh, we don't use anything. We don't use Imperial technology. Like, really?
Well, that just goes to an example of any political regime. But they find a way to justify it. The New Republic felt justified because they're sitting there going, oh, well, we're better than the Empire because the Empire would have just killed you.
Right.
We're not killing you. We're giving you a chance to live, but we can't trust you with this past information.
We're just going to scramble your brain.
Well, yeah, they don't know about. They don't know what he knows. They don't know how much he knows. They're fine with him having information because they didn't do this to start with. If the New Republic wanted that information gone, or if they wanted to get that information from him even, they could have tortured it out of him and gotten him to give it to him if they wanted, but they didn't. They're just like, yeah, we know who you are. We know what you can do. Just be good. Like, we don't want you to do anything else. We don't need you to do your experiments anymore. Just stop. So I think that, like, the biggest thing to think about in that is that he was in that program. He hadn't been tortured. Nothing had happened to him. She had to go to these lengths to get him to do what they needed to do. But that program, like that reconditioning program they put him in, that's probably not something that the general public knows about. The fact that they have that mind flayer down there would not go over well with the good politicians. You know what I mean? So it's a tough situation to be stuck in, and I really think that, like you said, he got an electrolobotomy by the time it was all said and done. So we'll see how that plays out. But now let's get to the sweet stuff.
Also, the supervisor and all the doctors and stuff were wearing it. And I think this is the first time we've actually seen, and I might be wrong, but I do think it's the first time we've seen the logo for the New Republic, which is the Starbird with all the stars around it. Right. We haven't really seen that logo make an appearance until this episode.
Yeah.
Because even the X-Wings that we saw in previous episodes, Cara Dune, of course, didn't wear it because she wasn't part of the Republic yet.
Right.
Nobody was really sporting that logo, so this is the first time we've seen that New Republic logo show up.
It wasn't even on the X-wings that they were flying.
Right,
They
that's what I'm saying.
They still had all the old logos on it.
All the old markings. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think this is the first time it shows up, and the first appearance of it is on the guy pushing the cart. It's on his sleeve. That's the first time you see it.
Right. So let's talk about Din Djarin.
Can we talk about Din?
Let's talk about
Gin and tonic.
So he as we know, Bo-Katan saves him from the depth of the living waters of Mandalore and the mines underneath of them. After they exit the water, they're both just kind of sitting there. He's passed out by the looks of things. And she's just staring, going, is this thing coming out after me? Like, she was just, again, don't see her face right away, but you know that she's just
mesmerized.
Like, holy hell, holy hell, holy hell, holy hell. Did I see what I think I saw? Did I see that? Did you see that?
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, that was the whole point. Like, they believe. Did you see that? And he's like, Din, did you see that? Like, what'd you see when we came out? Did you see anything? And he's like, no.
You know, the fact that she asked him like 10 times, did you see anything? Are you sure you didn't see anything? It's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's like, I know what I saw, but I either need confirmation that I saw it, or I want to keep that as a secret, and I don't want somebody else knowing it, because I'm afraid that if, in this case, Din Djarin, if he knows what he saw and he starts telling other people, then we're going to have a case of everybody rushing to kill it or try to tame it or something.
Right.
So her keeping that, you know, her asking him so many times is that confirmation that either he doesn't know, or she's trying to make sure that he's not going to say anything, so she can keep that little tidbit in the back of her mind and use it to her advantage later.
Yeah, I have a very solid theory that will work. We'll talk about at the end. I know several. Corey, do you
think it goes with what we were talking last week with the whole idea that she was going to have the saber and he was going to tame the mythosaur. I don't see it.
I think she's keeping it in her back pocket so she can go back later on her own by herself to try and tame it and be like, look what I did.
Yeah,
100%.
So because basically what it comes down to is, if she can't have the dark saber, she can get the one thing that supersedes the dark saber. Right, the one thing that would trump the dark saber, then she needs to make sure that she has access to that. Nobody else. The problem with that is it ain't easy to tame no damn mythosaur.
So, and it's funny because Corey asked in one of the previous episodes, but what's he going to do? Bring a vial of water? It can be from anywhere. Ironically enough, what does he do?
And that's exactly what I said. I was like, did you see how that water reacted to whatever she poured it into? That's probably water from the mines. So there's everything that happened at the beginning of the episode.
Would have been better if he just took a selfie.
Well, the thing, but you hate the idea of that being in existence, if I remember correctly.
That was a joke, Vic.
Yeah, and it was a statement to me for me because of what we talked about last week. Which, by the way, I went back and rewatched the episode to see the camera angle thing you were talking about, because I was like, I missed something, and I did miss it. But all it was, he looked at the camera, and that's the camera at the loading dock of the ship. Like they hadn't gone around the corner. They were just walking towards the left-hand turn. So he was just looking at the camera at the gangplank for the ship. That's all it was. It's all good.
So what was the point then? If he was going to see them walk for 50 feet, what was the point of even showing us? What was the point though?
It was a droid. What does it matter?
Because it was a pointless shot to include in the episode. He was
monitoring them. That's all it was. It's just to show that he
for
was
the next 50 feet.
Either way.
All right, moving along.
So the other thing that when they came out of the waters, I was like, oh, hold on. The question that was asked at the end of the episode, I caught on to right away when they're like, oh, he's like, well, I witnessed you bathe in the water. And then he's like, yeah, but I'm going to take this as proof that I was here. And I was like, he bathed in the water, then that means she bathed in the water too. That makes so much sense to the name of the episode, because obviously the convert was the doctor, but the convert also is Bo. When it really comes down to it. So they leave Mandalore. They head back to Kalevala so he can pick up his N1 starfighter and get on his way. But on their way, they get attacked by a squadron of TIE Interceptors. I love TIE Interceptors, are my favorite version of the TIE fighter. And it was so good. It was awesome to see them. And they just came in full force. Mando jumps on the rear cannons and starts blasting them. And again, her ship is, I love that ship. They start fighting them and they finally get the upper hand. And he's like, I need my ship. And she's like, I can't exactly land. and
we're coming in hot.
And then like, you just kind of step out, like that ain't going to work. So he drops.
My question is, where did they come from?
He mentions it. He says something about warlords in the area.
She says, I've skagged off enough warlords. There's no telling who it is. And he's like, well, that's what happens when you rob them. She's like, oh yeah, about that.
You know what I really wanted to happen during that scene, and I was actually really sad they didn't do it. That scene where
come out of hyperspace at the end.
Yeah,
Din goes to the rear gunnery seat, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted so badly for him to shoot one down and for him to turn around and say, like, I got one or something, and then have Bo turn around and do a whole Han Solo, great kid, don't get cocky. Like, I wanted something like that. I mean, come on.
Let's be fair. Why is that okay, but it's a trap not? As long as they did it tastefully, as you're saying?
I didn't want it verbatim. Yeah, I didn't want it verbatim. I just wanted some kind of interaction like that to nod to it. Because it was so easy,
but
right there.
Since you already brought it up, didn't Finn and Rey have that conversation?
Yes, they did. Actually, on the Falcon. On the Falcon, they had kind of the same thing, that same interaction.
You brought
don't acknowledge the sequel trilogy.
you brought it into existence. You already brought it up. You mentioned it. You opened that can of worms.
Asked and answered. Moving on. But yeah, no, when that whole battle scene was just, I love Star Wars battles, and whether they're in space, on a planet, whatever, they're just awesome. And then when they have like what is now 3 of my favorite starships, because that N1 Naboo starfighter has grown on me so much.
This whole scene was so Top Gun. It was Top Gun. The fight, even the fight at the end of the first Top Gun and the fight at the end of the second Top Gun, with all everybody going this way and he went that way, and she even pulls the maneuver where she cuts the one brake and spins.
Oh, dude, that J-turn was awesome.
God, it was the cinematography on this scene was just absolutely amazing.
When she's flying through the chasm. And she's like, I've flown these chasms all my life. And she's like hitting the wall. She's like, well, I'm a little out of practice.
It's been a bit.
The fact that she has such a much more robust ship. TIE fighters in any incarnation are not very strong ships. They were not designed to take hits like that.
Speed.
But like them flying through there and like everything she was doing, like it was so good. And then when they realized that they were just being distracted, and she sees that they sent down TIE bombers to destroy her castle and her family seat. I was just like, oh, damn it, man. Bombers just going through, systematically taking down this building.
And she was pissed, and she wanted immediate revenge. And Din was like, no, look, we can't do this.
Like, you got my son in the backseat of your car.
I mean, if you think about it, there was 10 interceptors, and now we're seeing like 10 bombers. Those are 2 squadrons.
Right.
There is not going to be 2 TIE squadrons in the atmosphere if there's not a ship outside atmosphere.
Dude, I so wanted to see.
There's no way.
I wanted to see a freaking frigate with the.
You wanted to see a frigate? Say that 10 times fast.
A frigate with the mag pods on it, and like as soon as we saw that would have just been the end, like the total confirmation. That's what I wanted to see happen. I wanted to see.
Let's be honest. The real reason she was so upset is because her chair was no longer available.
Oh my God, Corey. She's just mad because she wasn't going to have a third different position to sit in the next time we saw her.
She was
He wasn't going to be able to lay down in her chair anymore.
She was upset.
She's going to find a new one.
They killed her droid. But yeah,
I will say, as much as the Interceptor is my favorite, playing Battlefront 2 a lot back in the day, whenever I would go into the space battles, I actually really got fond of playing as the TIE bombers. I really enjoyed playing as the TIE bombers. They were fun.
That Interceptor though is the epitome of the old term glass cannon.
Yes,
it's similar to an A-10 Warthog. It was like they took a laser cannon and put wings on it.
Yep.
And I mean, because that's what it is. It's built for speed and destruction. It like you said, there's no shields, there's no extra armor. If it takes a hit and that wing gets clipped, it's out of control and there's nothing it can do.
And it was
those ion thrusters.
Designed, yeah, it was literally designed for in atmosphere flight too. They can fly in outer space, but in atmosphere they maneuver so much better than a TIE fighter can because of the design of the ship and everything. So that battle was great. Then when they start to pull and they just start popping through the skyline, and there's like 20 of them in front of him. He's like, "We gotta go now!" They just dipped. But that J turn, like, oh man, the way she set it up, and then she did the dead dive towards, it was so good.
Yeah.
And then him doing the stall dive on the Interceptor.
Yes.
And he pulled up just in time to keep it from hitting him, because like it don't work the same way as in space. You hit one of those ships in atmosphere, you're screwed. As opposed to space, you can technically fly through them, because when they explode, they disperse a lot of the time. But
okay, so that J turn where she, turned her wings, that totally reminded me of Top Gun, where he's like, I'm just going to hit the brakes, and like, he goes up flat. But I know there's another movie where we've seen the stall skydive move, and I cannot think of what movie it is, but I know, like, as soon as I saw that scene, I was like, this is in a movie.
I think he did it in Independence Day when he's like, "Don't shoot that green shit at me!" Like that fight during that cavern. Yeah, while he's flying through the valley, he did the same thing. He came through the far side of the valley, and he like flung the ship around, the plane around, and came back at him. Yeah. So just the like I said, if they had just had a cruiser come in with those gravity wells in place, it would have been confirmation of everything we've talked about, and I would have just like walked away right there. I was like, we're good. Like, we know what's happening. We know what's coming. But they escape, they get away from them, and they end up going to the unknown planet where the covert is hiding out. He walks in, they land, and Paz Vizsla is like, yeah, you're not allowed to be here. You're apostates, get out. He's like, we're not apostates. I was like, I'm not an apostate anymore. I've been to the living waters of Mandalore. And he's like, yeah, whatever, bullshit. You don't believe him. And he walks in, and the armor is like, you shouldn't be here. You're not one of us anymore. Get out. And he's like, I've been to the living waters of Mandalore. I've redeemed myself.
Which for her, it's a strange line, because she knew what he was going to do, and now he's back. It's like, why would that be your first reaction? Why wouldn't?
Because everybody believes it's destroyed.
Yeah, him saying challenge accepted doesn't mean that it could actually be done. So she still doesn't believe in the fact that Mandalore is not cursed, destroyed, and inhabitable. That's her stance on it, and she's gonna die on that hill like you on many others.
Right. And just like as soon as he took that helmet off and became an apostate, that inconsequential trust that they had is no longer there.
Right.
So they're not gonna just take his word at it. They think he's lying about everything until he cleanses himself.
Yeah, because I mean, you can walk out of the room and like leave.
They're not gonna believe that.
Yeah, you leave, you walk out, you go in the bathroom, you put some water on your hair, you walk in, you put the helmet back on, and be like, "Look, my hair's wet under here. If you want to reach under, I've been to the living waters of Mandalore." She's like, "I'm not falling for it," but she doesn't believe him. And even when Bo-Katan's like, "No, I witnessed it. I saw it." She's like, "I don't believe you. You're an apostate too. Like, why would I believe you?"
See, that was my initial thought when they first landed and they got out and they were met on the shore, and she goes, "I was his witness." He looked at her like, "Bitch, ain't nobody
who you are."
I know who you
And
are,
you
and
know
I don't
what? I
believe
did
you.
what you gotta
And the
say.
sad part is that she was part of the Watch.
Yep.
Because he even says that he calls her. He doesn't call her by name. He calls her by station.
Yep.
Because he says,
Night owl.
he calls her a night owl. He
Yep.
doesn't call her Bo-Katan. He says, "What are you doing here, night owl?" So he knows that the Night Owls were a sect of the Watch. They were basically elite commandos of the Watch, of Death Watch.
Not only
And
that,
so he knows
she does have her helmet on too, so he may not know
he doesn't know
exactly
who she
is. He just knows
just that she's a night owl.
That she's a night owl. And that's why she knows the history of the Children of the Watch so well, is because the Children of the Watch were an offshoot of Death Watch, which she was a part of. So when she walks in and she's like, "I witnessed it too," as soon as she said, "I witnessed it," I was like, "Witnessed it? Hell, you did
Bitch,
it.
you jumped in.
You're now no longer an apostate either." And that's right when the armor was like, "Have you removed your helmet?" And she's like, "No, why? Why do you want to know that?" And he's like, "Oh, then you're one of us too. Welcome home." And I was like, "Oh, this is gonna cause
that easy, huh?"
Well,
I mean, if that's the requirement,
that wasn't easy.
Follow the rules.
But
But,
yeah,
you
know,
jumped
but
in a
that's the
pool.
thing is-
Okay, cool.
and that's the thing, that as soon as she said, "Well, okay, well then you are also one of us," everybody, everybody's
demeanor.
reactions and demeanor and everything towards both of them changed. They
Except for
immediately
Paz.
were like, "And we are now welcoming you with open arms. Let's
Paz
hug."
That
let's
made
be
me
merry."
laugh.
And he just walked away.
Everybody's reaction, except for him, immediately did a 180, and it just made me laugh because they're all you can tell, you can't see their faces, but they're just going. And then all of a sudden, oh, okay, yeah.
But I mean, that
like,
was the whole
fuck
thing.
outta
Like,
here.
they
Can you do
believe
the face again, please?
Nope.
Oh,
One time thing.
they believe in in their sect and the rules of it, and they've obviously followed it. So when the armor, their leader, says, "Okay, these people are good, they're okay," adding more Mandalorians to their set actually helps them, so they're all looking at it as a positive, obviously. The fact that Bo-Katan is now part of the Watch again gives her, to me, and my thought on it was, okay, she's been without a cause, a family, a group. She built one up and then she lost it again. It's the same thing that happened to her when she was ruling Mandalore. Like, she just keeps losing her people, and now she's got a group of people again, and that's gonna give her that extra little push to try to lead again at some point.
I think her and Paz Vizsla are going to butt heads a lot.
Most definitely. I can't wait for it either, because he's a heavy and she is most definitely a ninja. So,
and let her get that dark saber, and Paz will.
Yeah, he'll take the knee.
You're going
quick.
down, big boy.
He'll take the knee quick. Your repeater is not going to help at all. Like, it's just not.
Maybe he'll take a whistling bird to the knee,
to the ankle.
You said your what isn't going to help?
His
repeater.
His repeater.
Okay, that's not what it sounded like on my end.
Oh yeah.
I heard your peener is not going to help, and I'm like,
you no.
I thought she just heard the Peter part of it.
She didn't hear Peter. She heard Peener.
Yeah.
like,
she got an N in there.
Oh.
But yeah,
the pen is mightier.
Again, and like that's like the big thing is, like, she's got a purpose again. And I think that I don't know if she'll try to usurp the armor's lead, but I think she might.
She doesn't want the Watch.
I think she'll try to convince the armorer to
help
make
her.
The Mythrasaur legend so important to all of them that when she does show up with the Mythrasaur, nobody challenges her rule to the Mandalore and the Mandalorian people. And because she knows, and I'm sure she's heard the armor declare that prophecy about the Mythrasaur rising again to reunite their people, she knows what she needs to do, which is to try to get the armorer to make that even more prevalent, so that when it does happen, it supersedes Din's rule.
I don't think she needs the armorer to bring it back up, because I think it's already so like just front and center in their everyday lives. Because I mean, you have those sigils everywhere.
True.
But think about the armorer. the armorer is essentially their religious leader.
Right.
Think of the armorer as the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what she says goes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to religion, and Mandalore is a religion. I mean, just as much as it is a people, it's a
Right.
religion. If she says something, then Omni Domni, it has been ordained.
Right.
And so what she's looking for is she's going to be looking for the armorer to essentially confirm Bo-Katan. You know, that's what
Confirm
she's
her
looking for, is
rule.
confirmation.
Right.
You know, once Bo-Katan comes back, and she's going to say, "Look, I've done this," and the armorer has to go, "Yes." And everybody's going to go, "Okay, well, if the armorer says it, it must be true." And that's going to.
And here's why I'm saying that's what has to happen, because right now, the current knowledge of all the people is that, yeah, mythosaurs have been gone for a millennia, but what is here right now is the Darksaber, and that Darksaber has been the seat of power for the Mandalorian people since Tar Vizsla created it. So, and it is like known that whoever has the Darksaber is the leader of the Mandalorians, as long as they can rule with it, until they're defeated by someone else who can take it from them. So right now, it's the thing you can see, as opposed to the thing that you thing you know versus the thing that's there. So if you're like, oh, praise whoever, but this person is right here, that's what's gonna happen. Like, it's just not gonna. They're not gonna go with her because she says, "Oh, I saw a mythosaur." They're gonna go, he has the Darksaber, he's our leader. She needs to get past that. She needs to get them past that. It's just what has to be done in order for her to be able to get what she thinks is going to be control. I still think Grogu's going to screw them both over. He's going to mind control that thing and get it to calm down enough for Din to get to it, and she's going to be mad. She's going to be big mad because he's going to have the.
I still think at some point the Din and Bo-Katan are going to come to a head, and they're going to have to fight, and that lightsaber changes hands.
She shows up with the mythosaur, and Din just cuts its head off with the Darksaber. And he's like, "You thought you were leading."
But Din Djarin doesn't want the leadership either, and he has actually tried to give up the Darksaber. I mean, he's tried to hand it to her like 3 or 4 times,
but she knows
she won't take it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I think at some point it's going to come to a head where it's going to be like, "Look, you want this? Just fucking take it. Come to me now."
They're going to get in a fight. She's going to punch him once, and he's going to go, "Oh," and he's going to overreact, throw it down on the ground. Oh,
she's going to hit him in the face. He's going to grab his knee and be like, "Oh my God, my knee."
You pull up Peter Griffin and be laying on the ground holding his knee.
If you think about it, it's kind of, it makes Bo a hypocrite, because she gives Din Djarin so much crap about how religious zealots the Watch are, and how tightly they hold on to this ancient culture and you know, religious rites and everything. She gives him so much crap over it, but yet she's the same way with the saber. Yeah, with the belief that you can't just take the Darksaber, that you have to win it in combat. Even though he's tried to give it to her, but she just won't take it because their tradition states that you can't just take it.
Which ironically, she was given it.
So it makes her a really big hypocrite about making fun of him because of how tightly they hold on to their traditions.
Which is pretty stupid too, because they technically could have a battle amongst the two of them with nobody else around, and he could lose it, and like in a legitimate fight, and then she'd be like, "Okay, it's mine now," and then go on about their day. When, in theory, they could go off someplace, he could hand it to her, say, "Look, just say that we got into a fight," or they could pull this, or he could pull a Kevin Nash against Hulk Hogan.
That happened.
No. Because the problem is in Rebels, she was gifted. She was gifted the saber once before. Sabine Wren literally just handed it to her and said, "Here, you are now the leader of Mandalore." And she ended up losing it, and she wasn't a very effective ruler and everything. So she believes that it absolutely has to be won in combat to truly own it and be the leader, because she's already had it given to her once before and she failed. So I don't think there's going to be an issue of Din, and which is part of the reason why Din has literally tried to give it to her 3 or 4 times, and she keeps saying no, because she knows what happened the last time it was gifted to her, and she doesn't want to repeat.
I think also.
Sorry, that's a little bit of Rebels for you that you haven't watched.
That shit went over my head.
I also think that part of that also could come down to that dishonest, like being that dishonest about that rule and that thing could possibly also cause her to lose her like attunement with the Darksaber. Like she can use it now because she believes in it and like and how it works. But I think that bit of like deception to all of her people, to her entire like being. I don't know.
Would you say this is not the way?
Yeah, exactly. It's just not the way it's done. But it's like you said, it comes down to things like, okay, so he who wears the crown is the king type of situation. But in that situation, like even back, in England, yeah, he who wore the crown is the king, but it wasn't actually the king until the Pope said, you can be king. You know what I mean? So like there were still those things, and that's kind of where the armor is. She's kind of the Pope of the Mandalorian, people. And I think if you don't have her right now, Din has her on his side. He has the Darksaber and he has the armor on his side. If she were to just say, I want to rule, I have this Mythosaur, and the armor says, but he has the Darksaber and our people don't believe in this, like this is not the way, then no one's going to follow her. So that's why I feel like she needs to get the armor kind of on her side, and to make sure that they reinforce the fact that Mythosaur supersedes and as Richard said, trumps the Darksaber. So we'll see how it plays out.
To bring in current events right now, over in the UK, you've got Charles, who is, currently called king, but I mean, we have to wait for his coronation until he is anointed. Mm-hmm. And until they're anointed, they're only given what's called a cap of maintenance because they haven't been crowned yet. They haven't been anointed. They haven't been deified. So it's just that pre-setting. But once they're anointed, they're king.
Right.
But just because you put the crown on your head does not make you king. You have to have that blessed anointment first. Same thing here. You just holding that, just Bo holding the Darksaber and battling Omni Biodroid didn't make her the leader.
Right.
She wasn't blessed. She wasn't anointed.
Right. But that's the kicker, is like based on their religion and their society, it has to be won in battle in order for you to be able to claim the Mandalore. And if you don't do that, you can't be the Mandalore because you didn't do it the right way.
But also, going along with all of that, it's obvious that Din doesn't want the job, but the armor hasn't said Din's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
She knows he has the Darksaber. Paz Vizsla knows he has the Darksaber. So everybody should know he has the Darksaber. So by default, he should be in charge, right? He doesn't want it. Right. He not only does he not want the saber, but he doesn't want leadership of the Watch.
And he is fine. At this point, since he's now re-anointed himself, to use the word just because I can't think of anything else to use, because he is now re-anointed himself in the living waters, technically there is nothing to stop him from saying that he has control, because he won the Darksaber in battle. He has done what needs to be done to become part of the sect again. And,
he's been rebaptized.
Right, based on their rules. Yeah, he could assert his power, but he's not going to, because that's not what he's looking to do. That's not what he wants. But I do think that he does, and I'm not even sure why, but at this point, what's his next step for? He's got Grogu, he's got the Darksaber. Technically, he would have control of Mandalore. Like, what's his real purpose in this next juncture? It has to be revealed as to what's the next thing. So Mandalore or the Sett's going to be threatened.
I think something's going to go. He's always been trying to help Bo as well. That his main quest was Grogu,
right?
And these were his side quests. And now once he got to the point, and so now he's got all these side quests done, and now there's a new side quest, which is helping Bo. And like, he helped Bo get the ship and the weapons, and now Bo is like, well, I need some help getting my people back.
But that's
and then the other part is the reclamation of Mandalore,
right?
Because nobody has actually has constantly been said, Mandalore is cursed, Mandalore has been glassed, it's a devoid planet.
Right.
So at this point, he is probably going to start saying, "Hey, look, we could go back to Mandalore. We can retake our home world and be Mandalorians once again. We don't need to be outcasts."
And see, that's
And
the thing.
so
Like,
I
think what's your Bo's plan was to stop the reformation of the Empire, or whatever, like the you know the new order that's coming up, or whatever. She, you know, all of the warlords out there, she wants to stop them, and that was kind of what her plan was to get all the Mandalorians together and then stop these people from trying to reform the Empire. Like, that's her stance, because she knows the Empire will try to destroy their people again. But at this point, like, with him having the Darksaber, him being back in the sect, I can see him turning to say, okay, I'm going to help you get all of, I'm going to help you collect all of the Mandalorians that are just scattered out in the galaxy. But I just don't see that being him doing that being to her purpose of stopping, you know, the reformation of the Empire. I think it would be more of, I want to get all of our people together so we can rebuild our world and become our people again. More so than trying to help her.
I have a really big theory about the armor.
Okay.
And it could change the whole outlook on what we're talking about here.
It's Satine. She didn't die.
So, cover some points. She immediately knows who Bo is.
Uh-huh.
Immediately. And nobody else has to identify her. She just walks in. Nobody says a word. She immediately knows who Bo is. She has the horns on her helmet, reminiscent of the Mandalorians.
Yep.
I think she's rook cast. I think she is, because it explains the horns on the helmet.
I agree.
Thank you, Corey.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Corey, who's
since
rook
they're
cast?
gonna stay silent, I'm gonna
Who's
take
rook
your
cast?
side. Fuck if I know.
So
okay,
I can definitely see where that, because the whole Mandalorian thing has been bugging me on her helmet, but there are different forms of, there's like so many different forms of helmets out there. Like, I don't necessarily think that that's really part of the whole Maul situation. I just think that it's a design choice for her particular helmet. But with that said,
but the reason I'm saying that is because Maul was the leader.
Yeah.
Until he was defeated. So there's going to be somebody who basically takes over for him. And Maul was the leader of Death Watch.
Yeah, but so she's an armor, which is a thing all its own. Like,
yeah,
but if she took over after Maul, she could have been the one that was responsible for dropping the death part off and just making it the Watch, realizing that Maul's Death Watch rule was way too extreme, way too severe, and realized, like Richard said a couple of episodes ago, they're a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to do that. She wanted to keep the dedication and the very, you know, lack of a better term, religious devotion, but she wanted to get rid of the terrorist part.
Yeah, but Death Watch wasn't as devoted to the old ways as these guys are. Death Watch,
I think that was her salvation of the Watch.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of the terrorist part of this, and let's get back to our roots. Let's redevote ourselves to the way.
The only problem with trying to say that that's who that is that knowing that Din Djarin has the saber, why hasn't she tried to take it from him?
Again, going back to that religious dedication, they believe that the Darksaber is going to choose who the Darksaber wants to be the leader, who is the right leader. So in her head, the Darksaber chose who the appropriate person is.
No, because she knows that he can't wield it. So she would know that in theory, knowing that the saber is not sentient, that
but the is possibly.
Anyway, but no, I think I mean, I give you credit for going that route, but I can't follow knowing that because she was just as backhanded and backstabbing and she was power hungry. I think knowing that Din Djarin has the saber would be eating at her, and she would have done anything in the fight he had with Paz Vizsla. In the time that he laid it in front of her, I mean, why would she not take that hammer and wrench or hammer and tongs and just go to wailing on him to take the saber back? She had every advantage to attack him and take the saber, and she's never taken that opportunity.
Right.
And that doesn't
right
go
when
to
you're
the
saying that she was
character.
just as backstabby and out for her own interests. But again, something as terrible and life altering as having your planet glassed, that's enough trauma to shake you into saying, okay, I can't go about this fishy lifestyle anymore. Almost all of my people are dead. There's only a few of us left. We've got to get it together and keep our way alive and not let what is the Mandalorians go by the wayside. We've got to be true to who the Mandalorians are to begin with, so that we don't let our people die. And I think something as being like your planet being glassed was enough trauma to, shake her out of that selfish mindset.
So here's my argument, my thing to it. Like it would be an interesting turn, but the armors, the actual Mandalorian armors, it was a religion of its own within the Mandalorian people and the Mandalorian religion. They were the, high acolytes, the high priests and priestesses of their culture. They were the only ones who knew how to smelt and forge Beskar. It was passed down from, generation to generation within their families. And she's the only one that we know of that's left. And she was never that. I mean, even like there was no inkling to me that she had any kind of reverence to their religion and their ways, or that she was an armorer in any way, shape, or form. Like for us to actually have an armorer exposed in this way and for her to be the last of them, I think that it's a lot more to have her be that reverent point and just have her kicked back to being a character from the past. I think that this character has its own existence now that needs to be independent of the history that we know of it, to bring out the more religious history that we're learning about now. That's my only pushback to that. It would be an interesting twist, but I just think the armor should be exactly who she is, which is a new character that is going to create a different direction for them. And by pulling them, again, being that she's so traditional and hardcore into, the old ways, as opposed to the old ways of being, the warrior cast, the warrior type, people that Death Watch wanted them to be, because they had no problem taking off their masks. So I think that when it comes down to it, I just think that she's a character that I would like to see them keep as an original construct that allows us to learn more about the religion of Mandalore, than just making her someone that we've already had experience with and then doing this conversion thing that I think is where what you're saying. But I don't know. It's an interesting idea. We'll see where it goes, because again, we still have no real history on her, and hopefully they'll open that door soon too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to end this episode. But first, you guys, I noticed, if you noticed, I stay quiet through a lot of this because I don't know jack when it comes to a lot of the Star Wars stuff, because as they pointed out many times, I haven't seen Clone Wars or Rebels. But there is one thing that I did realize, and I should have realized this back in Boba Fett.
He's about to call it.
No, it was Mandalorian season 2. That the game. It's not really a game, but it's 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, where you can link any 2 actors together. Well, I am actually 2 degrees away from the Star Wars universe, and it took me this long to realize it, because the actress that played in the big segment,
Elia Kane.
Is that her name?
Yes.
Okay, her. She is actually from Indianapolis, and so she is my link into the Star Wars universe because she was in a short film produced by somebody that I have worked with on multiple occasions. So I am now 2 degrees away from the Star Wars universe. So that's all I have. That's what I took away from this episode. On behalf of Richard, Tessa, and Vic, Corey, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
And
Bye,
lots of
y'all.
peace out.
I'm 1 degree away, but I'll let him have it.
Okay, yeah.